What's up, guys? Emily here with Emlovz. Date number 5 was a simple phone call. This was my second opportunity with an old friend. I decided to count this towards my 20 BFF dates in 90 days because I found that there were some relationships that really mattered to me that already existed, but maybe needed rekindling. And I think that's an important part of platonic relationships. So if you're going through something similar, and even, this applies to romantic relationships let's say you have conversations that have dried out in your message thread on Bumble or Hinge or something, and you're like, oh, those people have lost interest. Well, that's not necessarily true. Maybe your messaging strategy just wasn't proactive enough. And it's very easy to pull dead conversations out and energize those. And that's something that I could definitely help you with. I teach things like this in my coaching program, Dating Decoded, which you can learn more about at emlovz.com. But what I really wanted to do is it's a lot easier to build on relationships that already exist than to start brand new ones. I can't remember there's a study that said, finding a best friend takes like so many hours, and it really does require so much of a time investment. And so in a way I was thinking, well, to rekindle some of these old friendships where we have spent a lot of time together and we do have that history, even if it's been 10 or 20 years since we really connected that way, maybe that would be an easier bridge to cross than starting something brand new, but you never know. So I wanted to explore it. And that's why I've branched out a little bit from just using Bumble BFF only. So anyways, this I would definitely count because it's totally not something I would have done unless I was doing this experiment. So one of my issues, and maybe you can relate to this romantically, is that with platonic relationships, historically, I've been quite avoidant. I tend to wait for people to reach out to me. I don't proactively go after what I want. And though I learned in my dating experiment to really go after what I wanted, I had yet to translate into platonic relationships that thing. And now that we've gone through COVID and all of these things have shifted, our normal socialization groups are gone now, or people have moved away. I've also stopped drinking. So all of the ways that I used to make connections and friends before have kind of changed. Now I'm realizing that I need to be really intentional. And so in order to further this relationship, I did have a coffee meetup with this old friend. And one of the things that I think is really challenging is like, how do you maintain that relationship? How do you continue that relationship? How do you further it? And I find it very easy in romantic relationships. I can teach you exactly how to go from first date to second to third to boyfriend and girlfriend and all of that. But in platonic relationships, historically, I've kind of just waited for the other person to reach out to me, which is problematic because then you're going to lose a lot of people. And one thing I'm learning is that relationships are reciprocal. So it cannot go all one way. So if this is resonating with you, even in your romantic life, if you are always waiting for someone to come to you, it's actually going to harm your relationships. Relationships should be 50-50. All of your relationships should really be 50-50. It's a give and a take, which means if you're getting invited to places, you also need to be doing the inviting. You also need to be coming up with ideas. When you say no to someone, you should come up with an alternative option if you do want to maintain that relationship, if it's important to you. Otherwise, you're really being selfish. And I was really being selfish. So it feels a little scary to put yourself out there. But one thing that you can use, and you could probably do this in your romantic relationships as well, but in platonic relationships, certainly, is to ask for help. When you ask for help, it's a compliment to the other person because it means that their help matters, their input matters. And it actually feels good to the other person when you ask them for help. And so if you're a people pleaser like me, you might be in the habit of not asking for help. You might be really good type A, amazing worker B, but maybe in the workplace, you never ask for help either. And that actually is causing problems because you can't do it all yourself. And if you could just ask for help and get a little help in certain areas, maybe it would make your work better. Maybe it would make your relationships better. Maybe, all kinds of things. So I asked for help on wedding planning because I'm very uncomfortable with it. And this friend is they're very comfortable with it. And it felt super, super scary to put myself out there and to be like, hey, I don't know if you're open to a conversation, but I'm feeling really overwhelmed. and would love your advice. And I can see how that would feel really good to the other person, because if someone reached out to me and said that, I would feel like so many warm fuzzies and be like, oh my God, yes, of course, because it feels good to know that your input matters. And so I asked for her advice, and she scheduled a call with me, and she was super nice and super helpful. And we had a great conversation. And so, the next thing that I can do is probably reach out to her again and, see how she's doing, and maybe update her on what she told me and like how things are going. But yeah, that was really new for me, to reach out for help. So if you haven't done this in your romantic relationships, in your working relationships, or in your platonic relationships, I challenge you to ask for help this week. What happens when we get in the habit of not asking for help and doing everything ourselves is that we find ourselves in romantic relationships, for one, where we give more than we receive, because we're actually not creating that channel for receiving. And if you're not receiving as much as you're giving, that's an imbalanced relationship. And over time, it's going to wear itself thin, and you're going to become resentful. And that's actually because you're not opening yourself up to receive. So it felt really good to receive. I had to ask for help, which means I had to drop my ego. But it worked out really well, and I felt really good afterwards. If you're looking for more help with dating, I can definitely help with that. Check out my free masterclass below this video, and you can learn more about my dating coaching program, which teaches you all about mega dating for romantic relationships, over at emlovz.com. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment in the comments below.